My wife reset our account while I was unconscious in the hospital. "I deserve it after everything I've done for you," she wrote. I replied with a single emoji. Nothing else. When I was discharged the next day, I did not go home. My name is Kevin Rose. I'm 46. I've been driving for over 20 years now, driving a truck all over Atlanta and the southern United States. It's not exactly a dream, but it's a stable job. It pays the bills, keeps the house in order, and provides Marissa with the life in the picture that she stopped appreciating many years ago. My heart had been pressing for 3 weeks. I blamed everything on fatigue, the highway, overworking, cheap coffee from gas stations. But near Birmingham, Alabama, the pain became so intense that I had to stand on the side of the road and dial 911 myself. I was airlifted to the Metropolitan Hospital in Montgomery. Diagnosis: not a panic attack. My heart was just failing. Before I fell into the darkness, I heard the doctor's voice. "We're losing him." Not what you want to hear before passing out. 2 days later, I woke up. Catheters, IVs, overhead monitor. The nurse said that I had been left twice and returned. It's amazing that I survived. I didn't feel lucky when I picked up the phone. There was one message, from Marissa. We were married for 15 years. There were no children, just a house in the Maple Glen suburb and the occasional awkward dinner when I was at home between flights. The message contains a screenshot of our joint account. Balance: $0.00. The caption reads, "I deserve it, after everything I've done for you." $67,840.50 is my reserve, money for truck repairs, an airbag, and part of my pension. Everything was gone. I should have felt the rage, pain, something, but I was just devastated. I was so tired that sleep wouldn't help. I sent her. Not a single word. When the doctor came in with his morning rounds, he said I needed to rest, no stress, and most importantly, do not drive for at least 6 weeks. "Who will pick you up tomorrow?" he asked. "I've already made arrangements." I lied. That night, I dialed my brother, Robbie. He lived on the other side of the city. We didn't fight. We just came from different worlds and rarely talked. "Do you need help?" he asked. "Yes, there is one thing." "Tell me." "I need to stay somewhere for a couple of days, and please don't tell Marissa about this." He paused. "Does she think you're dead?" Minus no. She knows I'm alive. She just doesn't know that I won't be coming home. I met Marissa at a gas station near Little Rock, Arkansas. She had a broken tire, and I was the guy who stopped and helped. Back then, she looked at me like a hero, just because I knew how the jack worked. It's funny how things change. What's exciting at the beginning, then just becomes self-evident. We got married 6 months later. Fast, but not thoughtless. I was 31, she was 28. They're old enough to understand what we're doing and naive enough to believe in the best. She didn't like that I was away for 3 weeks a month, but the money was good. She liked what they could buy. I called her every night, from motels, parking lots, intersections, where I picked up the signal. Sometimes we chatted for hours. Then the conversations became shorter. 5 minutes of news, then just checking the connection. The last couple of years have been almost nothing but messages. I drove to Chicago. Everything is fine. Now, looking back, I understand that there were signals. She stopped asking when I would be back. She started traveling with friends whom I had never seen, but I trusted her. That's what marriage is all about, isn't it? Based on trust. Robbie helped me get settled in his guest bedroom. He is a foreman, works on local construction sites, has been divorced twice, and like no one else, knows how much people can disappoint. "Eat something," he said, handing me a sandwich. I wasn't hungry. I was thinking about the house I bought and the recrediting I did 3 months ago when rates dropped. Marissa said she was busy and wouldn't be able to come to the signing, so I handled everything myself, in my own name. My credit score was higher. She didn't even ask to see the documents. And there was also a medical power of attorney, which I issued last year. My buddy Rick had a stroke, and his girlfriend couldn't make decisions for him, legally. I was scared then. I asked Robbie's niece, Caitlin, who is studying to become a lawyer, to help me arrange everything. Smart girl. I checked everything, all the signatures, everything according to the law. Does she know I have you? Robbie asked, handing me the tea. No, I said, and don't let him know yet. Did she take everything? I nodded. And now what? I took the first bite. It tastes like nothing. No salt, no bread, not even texture. I'll rest first. The doctor gave instructions to rest, but I didn't sleep a wink that night. I lay there and stared at the ceiling, remembering all the little things that I hadn't paid attention to before. How Marissa started hiding her phone under her desk more often. How I changed passwords. How to transfer money between accounts for a better percentage. I was blind, but not anymore. On the third day of my stay at Robbie's, I received a message from my neighbor, Douglas. I haven't seen you for a couple of days. Everything is fine? Marissa has a guy here. I thought you should know. I stared at the screen for a long time. He didn't answer. I just let it sink in, settle down. Later that day, Robbie and I went to the bank. Not to our usual branch office, where we were known by name, but to the main office in downtown Tulsa. I asked to speak with a financial fraud specialist, showed the message. I explained that I was in the hospital, unconscious, and that all transactions were made without my knowledge and consent. The woman behind the counter kept her face level, polite, professional, but I saw something different in her eyes. Compassion, maybe even a little anger, not to myself, but for me. Mr. Harrison, we can launch an investigation, she said, but since the account is shared and your spouse has equal rights, it won't be easy. I understand, I nodded, but I want to start anyway. She nodded and started typing. We will need documents from the hospital confirming the date of admission and the fact that you were unconscious. Not a problem. And if the case becomes criminal, the police will be involved. I'm aware of that, I replied. On the way back, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the car while Robbie fiddled with the pump. I watched through the windshield as a father with 2 children left the ice cream shop. Ordinary life was passing by. No noise, without breaking a sweat. Can I get something? Robbie asked. I shook my head. When I returned, I made 3 calls. The first one is for the dispatcher. He informed me that I was taking a long-term sick leave. The second one was to a credit union, where I had a small account in the name of my IPSHKA. The third is Robbie's friend, lawyer Blake Evans. I need to figure out where I stand, I explained. The house, the bills, everything. Blake agreed to meet the next day. I hung up, took out my laptop, and logged into the accounts Marissa didn't know about. I checked the status of investments in which she had never shown interest. It wasn't because I was hiding anything. It was just that she never asked. Financial reports were boring to her, but for me, it's an anchor. While I was looking through the bills, a message came. This time it's from Marissa. Where are you? Your car isn't in the parking lot. Did they tell you that I came? I didn't answer. Cameron, this is stupid. You can't just disappear. We need to talk. I put the phone screen down. Robbie poked his head out of the kitchen. Is she getting in touch? Yeah. Will you answer? I closed the laptop. Not yet. Later that night, I went out for a walk in the neighborhood. It was quiet. The air was cool, the sky was clear, and even with the light of the city, the stars were visible. It was the first time since the hospital that my chest didn't hurt. For real. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't even feel any pain. I'm just done with it. And with that came clarity. Marissa didn't just steal my money. She gave me freedom. A week after my discharge, I finally returned home. in the afternoon, when I knew she was at work. He opened the door with his key, as if he had returned from a long flight. The house smelled different somehow. Men's cologne. Not mine. Empty bottles of wine in recycling. 2 glasses in the dishwasher. I gathered clothes, important documents, and a small safe from the closet where I kept my passport and birth certificate. On the way out, I noticed that the photo frame from our wedding had disappeared from the chest of drawers at the entrance. Back at Robbie's, I met with Blake, the lawyer. We were sitting at the kitchen table, papers stacked. "Everything is interesting with the house," he said, looking through the refinancing papers. "You registered it for yourself, and taking into account the medical force majeure clause plus your diagnosis, you can claim sole ownership. What about the money she withdrew?" Blake frowned. "It's more complicated. By law, a joint account is a common possession. But," he tapped the statement, "if the withdrawal occurred while you were in a medically vulnerable condition, you can talk about financial exploitation, especially considering that most of these funds are your personal income. There is evidence." I nodded. "And if I want to file for divorce?" Oklahoma is a state with an equal distribution of property, but everything is taken into account. Who earned, who spent, and what condition the parties were in at the time of the key decisions. I leaned back in my chair. I was still exhausted, but for the first time, I felt like I was regaining control. "Given the circumstances, I think we can build a convincing case in your favor," Blake said, gathering up the documents. "I will prepare a preliminary package. In the meantime, don't get in touch with her. If she writes, don't answer. Everything goes through me." The next day, Marissa arrived at Robbie's house. I was alone. He went to the construction site. I heard her car pull up, but I didn't go to the window. First, the doorbell rang 3 times. Then the banging on the door started. "I know you're in there, Cam." Her voice was muffled through the door. "Your pickup truck is across the street. You can't just hide. We need to discuss this." I was sitting completely motionless in the living room, like a kid playing hide and seek. Finally, the pounding stopped. I thought she was gone, but then the phone rang. Message: "I'm sorry about the money. I was angry. You've been estranged for the last few months. I thought you were cheating on me. I found out about the refinancing of the house and I panicked. We can sort this out. Please talk to me." It was the first time she accused me of cheating. A projection, probably. I put the phone face down. He didn't answer. The next day, Blake called. "She's in touch," he said. "I hired Andrea Gutierrez as my lawyer." I froze. Andrea Gutierrez is one of the most aggressive divorce lawyers in Oklahoma. She was famous for doing anything for a client. A house, retirement savings, even future income. "What does this mean for us?" I asked. "That she's serious. Gutierrez has already stated that your leaving the hospital is desertion. They build an image of an unstable husband who disappeared without explanation and evades contact." I exhaled. "And now what?" "Now we will be ahead of the curve. I have filed a motion for an emergency hearing regarding the withdrawal of funds. Judge Jackson will handle the case. He is very harsh towards those who abuse the vulnerable position of another. After the call, I just sat and stared at the wall for a long time. Then I called Megan. I needed her help on a very specific issue. That evening, I drove past our house. Marissa was at home, and her sedan was parked in the driveway next to a black Infiniti Q50 that I didn't recognize. I circled the block and came back to Robbie. Already in his driveway, a message came from an unknown number. "This is Andrea Gutierrez. I represent Marissa Evans. Any further surveillance of my client will be considered harassment and recorded. All communications should take place exclusively through legal channels." They were watching me. I'm following them. And now, the gloves were off. 2 weeks after the first meeting with Blake, we found ourselves in court. An emergency hearing on the withdrawal of funds from a joint account. Marissa arrived accompanied by Andrea Gutierrez, both in formal dark suits. I was wearing the only tie I kept in the glove compartment of my pickup truck in case of an unexpected funeral. Judge Ronald Jackson, an elderly man with gray hair and glasses on the tip of his nose. Zrania looked through the documents carefully, showing no emotion. Sometimes he looked up at Marissa, then at me. "Miss Gutierrez," he said finally, "your client withdrew all funds from the joint accounts at the time when Mr. Evans was in the hospital in critical condition after a heart attack. Is that true?" Andrea stood up. "Your Honor, my client had every right to dispose of these funds. In addition, Mr. Evans recently refinanced their house solely in his own name, without Mrs. Evans's knowledge, which we regard as the first act of financial deception." The judge took off his glasses. "I'm not asking about the house right now, lawyer. I'm asking about the moment of withdrawal. Did your client know that Mr. Evans was in the hospital when she transferred the money?" Marissa leaned over and whispered something to the lawyer. Gutierrez cleared her throat. "Yes, Your Honor. But my client was under a lot of emotional stress. She was sure that her marriage was collapsing and acted in order to financially protect herself." The judge put his glasses back on. "Losing consciousness from a heart attack is hardly the right moment to ruin a marriage." He flipped through a few pages. "I decide to freeze the disputed funds until the end of the divorce proceedings. Neither party has the right to use the money until the property rights are determined during the divorce." It wasn't a complete victory, but it was enough that Marissa couldn't spend any more. At the exit of the courtroom, she tried to approach me. Andrea stopped her by gently taking her hand, but Marissa still managed to whisper, "Cam, please. You don't know everything." I walked past her without looking at her. Blake looked pleased from the outside. "This is just the beginning. Now comes the discovery stage." "You mean?" "Now all the cards are placed on the table." A week later, he called me to the office. There was already a folder with my name on the table. "We have a lead," he said, handing me the documents. Inside is an account statement that I've never seen before. It had Marissa's name on it. Balance, $113,905.22. "Where's that from?" I asked. "Your niece, Megan, found it. Her internship at Northgate Credit Union gave her access to certain data. This account was opened 17 months ago. And every month there are regular transfers, just below the reporting threshold of $10,000. The classic of avoiding bank monitoring." He turned the page. "These transfers almost always coincide with your intercity flights. You leave, the money comes." I leaned back in my chair. "So she's been planning all this for over a year?" Blake shook his head. "I don't think she was going to leave. Rather, I was preparing myself in case you decide to leave." "Why on earth would I leave?" "I lived in the cabin of the van so she could live comfortably." Blake quietly shifted another sheet. Credit statement. Hyatt Place Hotel, Milwaukee, date, 3 months ago. I was on the Phoenix line at the time. The name in the armor, Howard Jensen. Howard. Our neighbor. The one who wrote to me that some man was at our house. Blake's face became gloomy. "We think that Marissa has been having an affair with him for a long time, and he probably wrote to you on purpose to create a false trail and confuse you. The betrayal was not accidental. That was the plan. Howard pretended to be a caring neighbor while sleeping with my wife. Marissa was withdrawing money from my accounts while I was in the hospital with cardiac arrest." I stood up. "What now?" A smile appeared on Blake's face for the first time that day. "It depends on you. But if I were you, I would do everything to make them both regret that they decided to cheat on you." I spent the next month with Jeff. I was physically recovering, and Blake was collecting materials. We have a clear plan, document everything, find evidence of Marissa and Howard's relationship, confirm financial fraud. Megan, my niece, was irreplaceable. Thanks to her internship at a credit union, she helped us see financial patterns that an ordinary person would not have noticed. One evening, she said, "There is another person with access to this account, not as a co-owner, but as an authorized user." "Howard, right?" I asked. Megan nodded. "And one more thing. They started transferring money in small amounts to different banks. I think they realized that we know something." I looked out the window. "They disperse assets. They are preparing to escape." That night, I called Blake. "We need to speed up." "I agree," he replied. "But you can't act head-on. If we show that we understand everything, they will disappear along with the money. So we need a plan? We need leverage, something that will make them think." The next day, I drove up to our house. I knew Marissa wouldn't be there. She works in the office from 8 to 5. I didn't go inside. I just walked around the perimeter and started taking pictures. The barn that Howard built last summer. A new landscape that appeared in 3 weeks while I was traveling to California. Everything is paid from my account. It increased the value of the house, which is now officially registered only to me. I sent the pictures to Blake with a short caption, "It is documented." 2 days later, Marissa's lawyer, Patricia Wells, called Blake. "Amazing offer. Marissa is ready to return 50% of the withdrawn funds in exchange for a half share in the house." "They're checking on us," Blake said when he called back. "He wants to make sure it's not too cheap." "And what will we answer them?" "Nothing yet. Let them get nervous." Meanwhile, I made another move. I called the HR department of my company. "I've been paying for disability insurance for 20 years. You are entitled to 60% of your salary for up to 12 months, the HR employee explained. "Given the diagnosis and the doctor's prohibition to get back behind the wheel, you can easily pass." I submitted the application on the same day. Marissa didn't know about this income, which means it won't be included in the divorce settlement yet. The following week, I asked Jeff to take a ride past the house again. There was a sign on the lawn in front of Howard's house. "For sale." "He leaves first," Jeff muttered. I nodded. "Call Megan." An hour later, she called back. "He closed all the accounts 2 days ago. I withdrew $89,700 in cash checks." I immediately dialed Blake. "We must act. He's selling the house. I think they're running together." Blake didn't hesitate. "Tomorrow I will file a motion for an emergency ban on the disposal of property. We will freeze all assets and block transactions without court approval." The next morning at 7:44 a.m., I received a text message from Marissa. "We need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers." I showed the message to Jeff. "Panic," he said. "Fine," I replied. I forwarded the text to Blake. He replied, "Don't answer. The warrant hearing is at 2 p.m. At 1:30 p.m., I was walking up to the courthouse and saw them, Marissa and Howard, in the parking lot. They were arguing. They didn't notice me. I turned on the camera on my phone and shot 30 seconds of video, the proof of their relationship, which they had so carefully hidden from the court. Blake was already waiting for me inside the courthouse. I showed him the recording. He chuckled. "Perfect. Judge Harmon is already in a bad mood today." I straightened my tie. "Then let's not keep him waiting." Judge Harmon's office was much smaller than the courtroom. It's just him, 2 lawyers, Marissa and me inside. Howard remained outside the door. Officially, he is not a party to the divorce. The judge opened the video on his laptop. There was no sound, but the body language said it all. Argument, intimacy, connection. "Miss Wells," the judge said when the recording ended, "do you want to explain why your client claimed under oath that she was not in a relationship with this neighbor, although the video proves the opposite?" Wells looked uncertain. "Your Honor, the nature of this relationship is not directly related to the financial issues under consideration." "It does when it comes to alleged financial fraud," the judge interrupted her. He turned to Marissa. "Mrs. Reynolds, are you going to leave the state with Mr. Drake?" She paled. I don't... I'll reformulate it," the judge continued. "We have evidence that you and Mr. Drake transferred significant amounts of money, that Mr. Drake is selling real estate, and that you withdrew a large amount from your account while your husband was in the hospital after a heart attack. All this indicates deception and an intention to escape." He looked at the two lawyers. "I am immediately freezing all assets of Marissa Reynolds and Howard Drake. None of them can leave the district without court permission." Then he turned to me. "Taking into account Mr. Reynolds's medical condition and the evidence of financial exploitation presented during his incapacity, I grant him the temporary exclusive right to use the shared home." Marissa let out a strangled sob. "Your Honor," Wells began, but the judge raised his hand. "The exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse is a matter that this court takes extremely seriously. You're lucky that I'm not recommending that the case be referred to the prosecutor's office yet." Blake began to gather up the papers, suppressing an expression of satisfaction. For the first time in a long time, I felt that justice exists. As we were leaving the courthouse, Marissa caught my eye. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not anger or resentment. Not in front of me, but in front of the consequences. 3 months after my hospitalization, I returned to the house. He was officially mine now. The divorce was finalized faster than both sides expected. After the asset freeze hearing, Marissa no longer resisted. Howard disappeared, leaving her to deal with everything alone. The court awarded me a house in Sherwood Hills, my pickup truck, and 80% of my savings. She still has her car and the remaining 20%. The secret account was split in half, but only after my legal expenses were deducted from her share. We never spoke directly again, only through lawyers. The last I heard, she moved to Minneapolis, started everything from scratch. Probably. I sold the house 6 months later, too many memories. I bought a modest one-story house in Bloomfield, closer to Jeff and Megan. From a portion of the funds received, he helped Megan with her last semester at law school. She'll be a great lawyer, I know that for sure. I don't go on long-haul flights anymore. The cardiologist said, "No more 16-hour shifts and moving across 5 states in a row. Now I work in an office, in logistics. I plan routes for others. I'm coming home for dinner. It's quiet, but it has its own calmness. Sometimes people ask if I'm mad at Marissa. Not anymore. Life is too short to carry grudges. We don't control what others do to us, only how we react to it. That day, in the intensive care unit, she thought she was taking everything from me. But in fact, she gave me a chance to rebuild my life, to fight for yourself, to understand what I'm really worth. I was sorting through old boxes in the garage last week. I found the wedding album. I thought about throwing it away, but I didn't. I just put it back. It's part of my story. Not the finale, just one of the chapters. A heart attack almost killed me. Betrayal almost broke me. But I'm still here. Different, but perhaps stronger. Some lessons are learned only through pain. You lose some people, and rightly so. And sometimes the life you're rebuilding turns out to be better than the one that was taken away from you.